Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Trey Tucker about heels on Starz, plays, of course, Bobby Pin. Welcome to the show, man. It's good to see you.
Thank you, man. It's nice to see you. Thanks for having me do this. It's nice to get to talk about the show.
Absolutely. It's pretty cool because I remember last year you were doing some press for a horror thriller called What Lies Below. And I remember you said in the interviews that you were working on a show like Heels, like you were working on it and everything. And now it's finally out. Has it hit you that it's finally out? Like, it's pretty crazy.
Oh, yeah, man. It's always a little weird to work on something and you're there and it kind of takes over your world for a little while. And then, for a while, it just sort of, you show up, you do your thing, the cameras are there, and then it kind of goes into the ether. And then comes back to you months later and it's done. It's a little, it's fun. It's like a little surprise. It's sort of like ordering yourself something on Amazon. Yeah. And then it shows up a few days later, and you're like, yeah, it's surprising. So.
Absolutely. I honestly think, and you've been doing this for a good amount of time, storytelling and acting, but I think some of my favorite shows these days are the shows that dive into these worlds that we aren't necessarily super familiar with. And with Heels, it is the world of pro wrestling and the grind and the hustle and everything. Do you agree with that statement that storytelling kind of has an opportunity these days to elevate things and kind of show us stuff from worlds that we might not be familiar with and we can kind of be exposed to it? Like, I think that's a really cool thing these days too, Trey.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing that a lot. You're seeing people do that a lot more because I don't know if you remember this is a way left field reference, but there's a video of Fred Rogers before Congress where he's saying, trying to get funding for his show, and he says, I don't think that we have to show someone getting, cartoons or someone getting bopped over the head, or we don't have to show gunfire to make something dramatic. Like two people in a real circumstance working something out is plenty dramatic, and it's actually connect to it a lot easier. I'm not using different words than he used, of course, but I share that sentiment. I think that the things that are happening to real people in these wildly varying lifestyles and pursuits are plenty dramatic to make stories out of. You don't need to go to outer space to tell good stories, unless you're telling a story like Apollo 13.
Oh, for sure. No, totally.
But yeah, I think that the stories that are already here are very deserving of being told and compelling in their own right.
People are going to be able to see it as week to week, every Sunday. It's going to be on Starz. They got to know Bobby Pin a little bit already, but obviously this is a character who's just a very good guy that loves pro wrestling, wants to get out there, very focused on the craft. What was it like stepping into the shoes of Bobby Pin and Heels on Starz?
I mean, it was a great time.
He is a great time, though, right?
He's super fun and enthusiastic, and it was sort of it was I mean, it was the enthusiasm was really fun. I think the challenging part for me was not challenging, but the cool exercise was he's not the brightest crayon in the pack, and even though he means very well and he tries
means
very
so
hard.
well, yes.
And like I was like a computer programmer for a long time, and I read. I like the sciences. I think in another life I might have been a physicist or something like that. It's probably a bit egotistical to say, but I love that kind of thing.
Yep.
And using my brain, and grew up with that being what my parents rewarded.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to play somebody who is not really intelligent and doesn't know how to teach himself stuff as easily without making it a gimmick was a good challenge, and I hope that I got that right. But I think the cool thing about doing a show like this. I told everybody, I said, man, it was so much fun. I really hope we get to do it again, because now I by the end of it, you're like, well, now I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But now it's over. And so I think that would be the thing I'd love to get to do it again, because you really, by the end, you kind of have things dialed in, and then it becomes really fun, because there's no more figuring things out. It's just, you get to go in and have fun and play.
And again, like, this interview is going to be posted pretty soon, and we're just getting started with Heels, and people are going to see the growth of a lot of the characters like Bobby Pin. There is a lot of growth there, and I'm excited for them to see it, because we've seen it, Trey, but people are going to be able to see it. What I really love too is, powerhouse cast, just unbelievable. You had an opportunity to work with some amazing people. I talked to Robbie, who plays Diego, about this as well. I mean, just unbelievable cast, top to bottom. For you specifically, what was it like actually kind of getting in there and kind of working with Steven and Alexander and Kelly and Mary and everyone, and Chris? Like, I mean, just an unbelievable cast right there.
Oh man, it was great, and I was very fortunate that I got to have scenes with a lot of different people. Like most of my wrestling matches, the first episode I wrestled Alan.
Yeah.
Did a whole match, and they only used a couple beats of it. I was like, come on, put the work hard. I'm teasing. They fit a lot of stuff in. But then the rest of most of my matches are with Xander.
Mm-hmm.
There's one match that we did working with Pete Siegel also, and Jessica, our Jessica Lowry, our two directors, was also good because they're so experienced.
Yep.
So it was a daily education, feeling like you're in the pilot seat where you're flying it, but there's somebody right there that's going to keep you absolutely safe. Kind of show you anything that you might miss. There's someone there to kind of correct the flight plan a little bit. So
man, I love how you put that. That's awesome. That is so true. It's kind of like when I say with the middleman thing too, right? Because like people are gonna see Trey Tucker as an actor, storyteller, as Bobby Pin in Starz, and they've seen you in other movies maybe, and they've seen you around, right? But you're getting your break on the show. One can make an argument as well, like you and Robbie, have some amazing roles in this, and people are gonna look at you and be like, wow, like I want to maybe be in Trey Tucker's shoes one day. But at the same time, you're also kind of looking up to people and growing and learning as a storyteller as well. So you're kind of like a middleman. Like that's an interesting concept as well to think about.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how everything is. It's this big continuum. Like, so it's sort of, you have one hand, reaching. I don't want to say up and down, because that kind of has a bad connotation to it. But like one hand kind of reaching forward, another kind of reaching back to say, someone is going to help me move in the direction I want to go, and I can kind of also help other people that haven't really gotten as far yet. That's just the human continuum, I think.
Absolutely. Does it blow your mind in one regard you're working on a show about pro wrestling, but then in the other regard you're not working on a show about pro wrestling because it's about way more than just pro wrestling? Like that is a pretty crazy thing to think about as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I said kind of early on that it is exactly that it's what makes it easy to connect with is that it's about a group of very, very different people.
Mm-hmm.
They who all just happen to really love this one thing.
Yeah.
And what ensues when you put those same people in a room and they have all of their issues and everything. And I think if you work for an accounting firm, or if you're out on an oil rig or whatever, or if you're grooming dogs or something, it doesn't matter. If you're working with a group of people and you all have a motivation and a drive towards one thing, you're going to probably bump into similar dynamics that you have in a show like this. And that's what makes it really fun, because it's sort of the wrestling is, I think we worked really hard to make it really good and to honor the effort that people who do that as a profession put in.
Yep.
But you could take these same stories with some adjustments, put it in a lot of different places.
100%.
And that's what's really fun about it, is you get both of those. Like you said, you get to kind of take a little more of you get to zoom in on a little piece of the world that you may not be familiar with. And that's always very fun, but you can zoom out from it too, and it has just as much meaning.
It's so true, and I love that about content these days. I love it. I'm obviously like a sports and a pro wrestling fan, so I'm kind of like in between a little bit, where like I enjoy both. Like I love it, right? Like I love that it's about pro wrestling, but I love that it's about growth and characters and the small town, man. Like everyone knows everyone and trying to kind of make it in the industry, and it's
a crazy story about that. So this is a total aside. So my mom's family is from a little town called Dayton, Texas.
Okay.
Which is in about an hour east of Houston.
Okay.
I grew up in North Houston, and we would be out there a decent amount of the time. Mom's family were farmers, and I got to LA and got hooked up with a manager, and hooked up at APA, the agency out there, and then I got introduced to a couple young agents there after a year or two.
Yep.
And a couple of them came to a birthday party I had right after I actually filmed What Lies Below.
Okay.
Just got back from New York, was about to go to Bulgaria to film a little part of The Outpost, and with Rob Lurie, and talking with this one agent who got me the job on Heels, and his name's Philip, and he's like, so man, we talked a little bit at the agency, but like, tell me about like where you're from. I said, I'm from Houston, like kind of North Houston, and mom's family's from a little farming town near there. And he said, what town? And I said, a little town called Dayton, Texas. You wouldn't know it. And he goes, are you serious? I said, don't tell me that you know Dayton. And he says, I spent my childhood in Dayton. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? He says, Dayton, Texas. I said, yeah. And I said, like over where 1960 ends. He's like, yes. I said, what are you talking about? He's like, I spent several years there as a kid, and I went way back. That's where my family's from. I said, that's where my family's from. And he said, well, what's your family's name? He said, the Domex. I said, well, my family are the Reedlands. And
I'm sure there was some familiarity when you went and asked.
Goes, like, of course I knew the Reedlands. Everybody knew the Reedlands there. And I was like, well, I didn't grow up there enough. I didn't spend enough time out there to know who your family was. But I told my mom and my grandmother, my grandmother still lives there, and they couldn't believe it, that somehow from this town today it has fewer than 10,000 people living in it. We both end up in LA, both end up at APA, and he ends up representing me without us ever knowing any of this information. So it was quite a crazy synchronicity there, and call it divine choreography, call it whatever you want to call it, but it certainly makes you feel like even if it's just a feeling, it's nice to think that maybe things are happening where they're supposed to.
And that's also like a very like hashtag like small world hashtag full circle moment as well too, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
which is really, really good. Trey, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on Popternative to chat about Heels on Starz. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to do it. Thanks for chatting with me for a little bit.
So Sunday on Starz, Heels is out, so they're going to be able to look out for episodes. I mean, we're just getting started, basically. Bobby Pinn and the rest of the Duffy Wrestling League. They're going to be able to check that out. Where can people follow you on social media to keep update with everything?
I'm not great at it because I try to do it as much as I can, but I'm on Instagram as Trey Tucker. And that's really the only, I think I have a Twitter. I haven't used it since like 2011. I think the last thing I wrote about was like a code base that I used or something. Yeah. So that don't bother with the Twitter, but Instagram is the main one. It's just Trey Tucker.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative. For previous episodes, you're going to be able to catch Trey Tucker as Bobby Pinn in Heels, which is on Starz. Until next time, this is Trey Tucker, Petey Beats, signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.